Kia ora guys, good afternoon and welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max and I'm the host of this channel, and today we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive into how Ireland beat the All Blacks in the 2022 mid-year test series. Ahead of the series, I think I gave Ian Foster far too much credit, and just for those who want to know, before the All Blacks coach for 2020 and beyond was picked, I was on the side of Jamie Joseph. But before we get into everything I have to unpack, I want to give a big thank you to my patrons and a reminder to everyone to click the subscribe button, like this video and comment on this video after you hit the notification bell. Under Ian Foster, the All Blacks have won just one of their last 5 games, which is unacceptable, as Mark Robinson, CEO of the New Zealand Rugby Union, said himself. Andy Farrell, on the other hand, has done a magnificent job with Ireland. He saw a prime opportunity to create history, and his boys went onto the pitch and they grasped the opportunity with both hands. Andy Farrell, as far as I'm concerned, is now the greatest ever head coach that Ireland has had. We're going to discuss the All Blacks attack as the first part of this video, and under Ian Foster, the All Blacks have had such a basic attack structure that is so easily readable, especially considering Johnny Sexton is selected by Andy Farrell to be an on-field coach. The most disappointing thing about this as well is that Brad Moore, as the assistant coach for the Crusaders, developed a brilliant offload-heavy attack structure that could just crush any Super Rugby team out there. But nowadays, as I've said in previous videos, the All Blacks have a very blunt attack, and most of their patterns are just advanced versions of hands down the line, as I've said in previous videos. We're going to look over here at this play in particular. Smith passes after the scrum to Barrett, who goes straight to Ioane. The positioning of his hands signal he's going to go wide to use Ioane as a strike runner. 2 defenders are easily able to shut down the play with ease. The usage of the All Blacks pods was also referred to by Squid Rugby as an innovation. No, it's not an innovation, it's one-dimensional. It's a tactic that just sends one-off runners up the guts, while nations like Ireland often have an extra player attached to their main carrier to gain more meters. All Blacks pod structure throughout the mid-year test series was a 2-4-2, and it's a very risky structure indeed. Aaron Smith would almost exclusively pass to either the 3rd or the 4th runner in this flat 4-man pod, allowing Ireland to push us back while we attacked against them. For example of proper tight carries with the main carrier supported by another player to get some go forward, look no further than Ireland closing out this same match. In the 2nd and 3rd test, I do not recall seeing a single phase in which this tactic was useful. As we can see during the 65th minute in Dunedin, Farrell Fakatava goes wide to Aidan Ross, who is a fellow debutant, and the pod is flat rather than diamond shaped as a usual 3-man pod should be. The flatness of this pod allows Ireland to drift forward and get into Ross's face, leading to a knock-on, then a 50-22 kick by Peter O'Mahony, of all players out there. We look at this one-off runner again. Here we have George Bower in the 21st minute of the first test. Andrew Porter isn't able to win the turnover here, but look how quickly he was able to enter the ruck. This is a result of George Bower being the only All Black on deck. Luckily, Ardie Savia is able to clean Porter out off the ball. What's frustrating as well is that in the 22nd minute of the 3rd test, we see the All Blacks support a carrier by latching on, yet we don't commit enough players to the ruck to hold on to the ball. I also briefly want to talk on the All Blacks tactical kicking, which was absolutely terrible. Ireland has a 13-man defensive line in most phases, apart from the players who are at the bottom of a ruck. They usually just have one winger and the fullback Hugo Keenan in behind their main defensive line, yet the All Blacks fails to exploit this, and I can only recall one occasion in which Geordie Barrett tried to do this to no avail, as Keenan was so far back that he could sweep up and get the ball. Beauden Barrett's chip kick over here, so unimaginative. This kind of kicking cost the All Blacks the 3rd test directly. The kicking game wasn't very good either. We're now moving over to the rucks that I was talking about, where in the second minute in Dunedin, Brodie Retallick is the only All Black committing to this ruck twice in a row. The props are nowhere near the ruck, while Taylor, as we can see, is offside. While George Bower runs back onside, this frees up clean ball for Jamison Gibson Park, while Ireland's attack is already set by the time the All Blacks are back onside. Sam Cane then comes out of line against Johnny Sexton, who was always looking to pass to Tyke Byrne. Cane therefore forces his outside man in Tu'ungafasi to make the tackle sideways, but Byrne runs onto the ball at pace, so the line break is easy. The All Blacks were absolutely outplayed in the ruck, and Ireland deserved to win against us because the ruck was the main area in which they destroyed us. However, there are a few occasions in which points were scored where we don't really need to analyse anything. During the series, the All Blacks scored 11 tries while Ireland got 9 tries. Only one of them was actually scored by a game plan made by the coaches for the All Blacks. The only try created by an actual tactic was Beauden Barrett exploiting space in behind. This isn't just one of the 2 occasions that I can recall it happened. He was kicking for Tupaia as Ireland has 12 players in a flat defensive line inside their own half. I'm just annoyed that the flat defensive line once again wasn't exploited. But yes, Barrett kicked in behind it, Quinn Tupaia could jump on it and score. There was an excellent reading done by those two. I'm just so annoyed yet again though. Such an obvious weakness in Andy Farrell's Ireland. But yes, despite the masterclass by their coaches, a few plays in which Ireland scored don't really need analysis at all either. Josh van der Fleer and Rob Herring both scored off mauls in the third test. In the first test, we saw Bundy Aki score from a simple pass off the ruck. Andrew Porter's first try in the second test doesn't leave much to analyse either. Ireland just simply in this play of more numbers out wide, and Porter is a front rower, so Quinn Tupaia was never going to stop him. There's no need to analyse Porter's second try either. It's a case of phase after a pick and go. However, we do need to look at how Porter ended up there in the first place. Let's look at how the decoy lines worked in Ireland's attack. So when Keith Earls scored the first try of the series, I knew exactly what was coming, and I knew Ireland, after that try was scored, were going to give the All Blacks a bit of a hard time with their decoy lines. And the first one we'll look at was in the 48th minute in Dunedin. We see Doris and Byrne as screen runners going towards Ioane and Whainga Anuku, who have had to come inside of the pitch as Taylor is too close to the previous ruck. Sexton's hands are positioned behind himself, so these forwards here running as screen runners are never in a realistic position to catch the ball, as Taylor has forced Whainga Anuku to bite in just his second test. Aki exploits the hole, and thanks to Ireland's 2-3-2-1 pod pattern, O'Mahony runs the wide line to get over the gain line. I was very surprised that the All Blacks chose not to mark whoever the one-man pod was as well. The selection of Peter Gus Sowakula over Luke Jacobson made me think this is going to happen, yet another area over here in which I gave Ian Foster too much credit for. I said the All Blacks were initially going to win the series 2-1, but after we lost the first test, I said Ireland by 7, and well, yeah. Back to the footage, the reason that Ireland's decoy runners work so well though is normally the pace of the decoy runners. As we can see, the All Blacks attempts to replicate the screen runner play with just 3 minutes left in Dunedin. Sowakula, Kane and Tu'ungafasi all stand flat, while Whakatava simply goes behind. With just 2 runners outside him, Mwonga has extremely limited options and they lose about 15 metres of ground. Luckily, Ireland don't have enough out wide to defend against Jordan. The All Blacks may have scored, but the decoy runners didn't work at all. Geordie Barrett was only able to pass to Jordan thanks to Carberry and Lowe's miscommunication, hence why James Lowe never got an All Black cap. He's not the best defender. The All Blacks also attempted to replicate Ireland's decoy lines in order to close out the third test as well, but the imitation was laughably bad. Here we see a 2-2-1 pod structure in the 73rd minute, while the other 3 forwards are at the bottom of a ruck. Savia is in a pod with Ioane and goes out the back to Mo'unga, who sees the overlap and correctly goes to Barrett, who barely gets over the gain line because this was so foreseeable. At the next phase, Coles tries this again, Mo'unga whips it out the back too, but with the 2 Barretts at the bottom of a ruck far away, Jordan has ended up far closer to Havili and needs to be much wider. With Papali'i out far too wide and being covered by Low, Jordan is forced to take the ball in, botching a try that could have kept the All Blacks in the game. This here is an example as well of why I don't think Will Jordan is ready to be a key decision maker for the team. He was exploited by Ireland many a time on defence in the 3rd test. Will Jordan needs to remain on the wing, as Jordie Barrett is a far superior defender, as you can see from their Super Rugby tackle percentage stats. Ireland's decoy lines work just as well in the backs, by the way. In the 27th minute in Wellington, Doris flies up at Barrett and Havili, distracting them from Aki's pass backwards to Sexton. This forces Ioane and Jordan to bite in, with Henshaw and Hansen running as outside options that are close to Sexton. Hansen, however, is used as an extra distributor despite the number on his back, so luckily Jordie Barrett has read the play, which allows Low to cross over the gain line. We then see more decoy runners fly up after backs go into the ruck. Sheehan passes out the back to Aki as Van der Fleer and Doris run lines that force Bauer and Retallick into a ruck deliberately made by Aki taking it in. As Retallick operates as the usual fringe guard around the breakdown on defence, Laulala and Kane fill in, while Bauer and Retallick have to run and cover Kane's spot in the wider channels of the pitch, with Jordan, yet again, panicking on defence, rushing inside without a forward to help him regarding defensive positioning. Keenan is able to cross over for their 2nd try of the 3rd test, collecting the inside pass from James Lowe. A decoy line also plays a part in Robbie Henshaw's try in the 3rd test too. Andrew Porter simply engages David Havili, who is then unable to stop Sexton's pass to Aki. With Beauden Barrett rushing out of the line and failing to hold his position, Havili is forced to commit to Aki from side on, freeing up Aki to send an unmarked Robbie Henshaw over to score. I hope you guys enjoyed the probable ad break by this point. We're now going to break down a few stats, including possession, set piece, and things like that. The possession percentage was quite a bit of a surprise to me. The All Blacks had the majority of possession in the 3rd test, and normally Ireland win by dominating possession, as I explained in an analysis before the series began. The All Blacks also lost despite having the majority of possession in the 2nd test with 53%, while they won in the 1st test with 42%, as Ireland lost with 58% in the 1st test. I think territory was a bit more telling perhaps. Ireland just had 42% of territory in the 3rd test, 64 in the 2nd test, which they won, but then they also had 60 in the 1st test, so these numbers here are a bit mind-boggling, and it just tells me which team took the most of the opportunities they were given, I guess. Turnovers one was quite interesting as well, because the All Blacks actually made more turnovers than Ireland across the series with 15, whereas Ireland won 13. The fact that the All Blacks won so many turnovers in the 1st test is why they initially had the head start. Tackle success as well, as you can see, Ireland had a bit of a higher tackle success rate. This is a statistic that can often coincide with an All Blacks loss. Same here with ruck success, though it's not too different, but yes, as I've said before, as I mentioned in this analysis ahead of the video, ruck success almost always coincides with the All Blacks losses. Line-out success. Ireland won nearly as many line-outs despite attempting 6 fewer, so that was rather interesting to me. Scrum success though, it was exactly the same for both teams, which I think was really weird, as Andrew Porter was probably the best loose head prop of the mid-year tests of any nation. Penalties conceded though, the All Blacks conceded 2 more penalties compared to Ireland throughout the series, whereas they had 1 more yellow card than Ireland, and Angus Ta'avao did get a red card in the second test, and because of that, I don't think I'd like to see Angus Ta'avao in black again. I've kind of flip-flopped with my opinion on him a little bit, but after getting a red card, I find it very difficult to back a player. Now I do want to discuss the head coaches. Andy Farrell in 2015 got sacked as the England defence coach after a pretty poor 2015 Rugby World Cup. He then became Ireland's defence coach and pioneers the Blitz defence as he took over at the end of 2016. His first game as their defence coach was the one in Chicago, in which they beat the All Blacks for the first time, and I think that Andy Farrell comes across very open-minded, and he's learned from a lot of Joe Schmidt's mistakes. You can tell that by the fact that he has Mike Catt as his attack coach, and the fact that he's more than happy to have mobile forwards that pass a lot more compared to Joe Schmidt when he just had them bashing up front and stuff. I think Ireland are in very good hands with Andy Farrell steering the ship. As I said at the start of the video, he's done some brilliant work with them, and he did a lot of research on the All Blacks ahead of the series. As you can probably tell by how they played, his boys were also very open to what was in front of them. They began to read the 242 All Blacks pod, whereas they did a brilliant job listening to Andy Farrell as he holds the dressing room. Even though his son Owen has played 100 tests for England and the British and Irish Lions, it was also quite entertaining to see Andy Farrell saying this was the best thing of his entire life. And I think that if Ireland are ever going to get past the quarterfinals of a World Cup, this guy is going to be the coach to get them past that. And I think Ireland, if they continue to evolve, could perhaps make the semi-finals or, goodness me, God forbid, the World Cup final. To close this video out, I'm going to have to talk about Ian Foster. As I said at the start of this video, I don't think he ever should have become the All Blacks coach in the first place. The minute Steve Hansen announced he would be stepping down after the 2019 World Cup, Joe Schmidt had already confirmed he'd be retiring from being a head coach past 2019. So the first thing the NZRU should have done was hit up Jamie Joseph, who was doing excellently with Japan, but they never did, and Jamie Joseph got re-signed. As Warren Gatland had also signed to be the Chiefs coach, I was like, look, Scott Robertson is the only choice. He's only coached Super Rugby for 3 years, but you know, Ian Foster, up until the 2020 Bledisloe Cup, had never won a trophy as a head coach. And that there is the measurement in which you should be selecting the men for the job. Continuity, which is the style of selection the NZRU likes to have, can only go so far before it gets boring, and I could rattle off about the players like Ollie Norris, Ethan de Groot, Tamaiti Williams. I'd even go as far as saying Alex Nankivell wouldn't look out of place in the black jersey. I could mention all these honourable mentions that should have been selected, but mate, it does not matter who goes on the pitch as long as Ian Foster is the head coach. I'm not going to bother disrespecting the players doing anything like that, because they didn't pick themselves, and I saw that they were working their hardest. But Ian Foster, however bad he's feeling, I don't have any sympathy, because he fails to do his research against Ireland. And what's happening today is frankly unacceptable. He's got these professional analysts who know far more than me at his disposal to use to look at opposition tactics. Every rugby team nowadays that I'm aware of has some kind of analytical setup of people who watch back on footage and things like that. But for years and years and years, New Zealand rugby has not been performing research on opposition. In 2014, Brodie Vitalik was only able to slightly name one English player when England came here for a mid-year series, and it was Michael Laws, a player who does not exist. It was Courtney Laws that he forgot the first name of. You also saw in 2017 that only 3 All Blacks stood up in the documentary to say they'd done research on Argentina. Ian Foster, in that same documentary called All or Nothing, it's on Amazon Prime, said to Steve Hansen not to start Rieko Ioane against the British and Irish Lions, and look how that turned out. Ian Foster is frankly out of his depth. I've never been in favour of him, and I'm not jumping on any bandwagon. I'm just subjecting him to constructive criticism, which is that he has not done enough research, and it's just not good enough to see, because rugby is how the world perceives New Zealand. It's a massive part of our economy. It's what this country's known for. And with no decent rugby, who's gonna come to visit us post-pandemic? Like, come on, man. The All Blacks need to forget about the 2023 Rugby World Cup and start building for 2027, whereas Ireland, fair play to them, they did a brilliant job in this mid-year series. I have nothing but respect for them, and I'm wishing them the best for 2023. The first time perhaps that they could finally get out of the quarter-finals. Best of luck to them. Thank you very much to you guys for watching this video. I appreciate it very much. As I said at the start, make sure to like this video, comment on this video, and subscribe to my channel so I can hit my goal for the year of 5,000. I'm also on Instagram. I've got my own website for opinion journalism, and once again, a big thank you to my patrons. Cheers for watching this video, guys. Have a good one.